Hey y'all, welcome back to Right at the Wire. Well, they're going to run the Suburban Stakes at Belmont on Saturday, and it's not part of the late sequences, so let's take a look at it individually. The Great Trooper Suburban Stakes is run on the dirt at a mile and a quarter for 4-year-olds and up, and at Belmont, that's a turn and a half. And you can note that this race does start on a turn. Now, it's a small field, so maybe there isn't quite the tactical advantage you might normally have if you were to the inside, but there isn't a lot of early pace in this race, and I think any horse that can get to the lead will tactically have a pretty big advantage and be able to control things pretty well. Number one is Tonal Impact, and couldn't be coming into this race in any better form. He's a model of consistency. He's always in the money, and the last two races he eclipsed his top buyer twice. So he's in about as good a form as he could be. Now, this isn't a true Grade 2 stakes race by any means, so the class doesn't bother me a whole lot. I do wonder about the added distance because he has run in a mile and a quarter 3 times, and he's finished second in all 3. So those longer distances, most of them or all of them around 2 turns, don't appear to be appealing to this one. But this is more of a turn and a half, and with the softer turns at Belmont, I think maybe he can overcome that. I would consider this one to be a very logical win candidate in this spot, given his current form. Number 2 is Red Run, and classic Mike Maker. You know, he claims a horse, stretches him out, and all of a sudden the magic happens. You can see that the last 2 efforts in a mile and a half, this one's really stepped up his form and has run 2 back, got his career high in the Isaac Murphy. He looks a little one pace to me. That's kind of the only issue I have with him, really. In the Brooklyn Handicap, he just sort of rated off the leaders and just didn't have very much in the stretch. Certainly was no match for Next. But so they're cutting back to a mile and a quarter, and I don't know that that's going to be a help to him. As if it may be more of a hindrance, because it seems that the longer the distance, the better this one is. So I do have some concerns about that. Still, he is in pretty good form, but I would consider him to be more likely an under candidate. Number 3 is Clapton, and he's been a deep closer down at Gulfstream for the majority of his career. The Pimlico Special last time, he was up a little closer than normal, and I think it sapped his closing kick because while he did finish third, he was really no match for Rattle and Roll, and he couldn't get to speed bias despite rating near the pace. So I think they may have to take him all the way to the back to maximize his closing kick, and then you got to wonder if it's really going to be enough, because his pedigree doesn't scream a mile and a quarter, and he's never run at the distance before, and you know, his last effort was pretty good, and he did win the Ghost Zapper, but you always have to remember that wasn't Gulfstream and it wasn't a mile and a 16th. So got some mixed feelings about Clapton. He probably can pick up the pieces late if they take him all the way back, but I think under is probably more likely. Number 4 is Chargeit, and he's the big enigma in the race. You know, he just, after that Dwyer, we thought he was going to be a superstar, and it just hasn't happened. I do note, though, that the one thing, you know, we wonder about him mentally. I do, anyway. I mean, he's awful hard to trust. The last couple of races, he really just didn't have any excuses at all. He just couldn't figure out what to do in the stretch, and it was a real puzzlement, and it's ultra frustrating because he looks like he should always be a contender in these races. But here's the positive I see, is that this is a 5-horse field. And you go back to that Dwyer, there were only 6. And the races he had following that, when he seemed to have the most trouble, is when the fields were a little bigger. So I think the fact that you've got a smaller field here might help his chances a bit. I still don't like him at 3 to 5. I don't see how you could. But if he ran back to the Met Mile and with a 102 buyer, it probably wins this race, or is awful close. But you know, for sequence purposes, I mean, he's an awful tough horse to single. But I think, he's certainly good enough to win it. It's just a question if he decides he wants to today. But in a 5-horse field, I mean, I think you have to use him. But boy, is he hard to trust. Number 5 is Unbridled Bomber, and you get a Rod Ortiz aboard, and that's always encouraging. This one does like to run well off the bench. You see, back on the 16th of April, he ran a career high buyer in an option 80. Granted, it was a one-turn mile, and his stakes efforts really haven't been terribly promising. You see in the Withers, the Dwyer, and most recently the Westchester, he hasn't really factored terribly much. You can say that at least in the Westchester he was doing a little better, and he did finish 4th while being no match for the top 3. He is versatile, and I think in this race that is a help. You can see that he can go to the lead, or he can come off of it. And the lack of early pace in this race, I think their best chance would be put him on the lead and just see if he's good enough. And if you think about the questions you have about Chargeit's just mental abilities, and then about total impact with the distance limitations, this one could steal it on the front end. It's very possible. It's really hard to throw any horse out in this race, and tactically, I think this one's got as good a chance as any to win it, given the infirmities of some of the other horses in this race. So here's what our top 5 looks like for the Suburban Stakes. I'm going with Tonal Impact. I think he's in the best form. I think the configuration of the course isn't going to be as much of a limitation as he has had at the longer distances. And the bottom line, he's on the rail. I think he'll be up where he wants to be. And I have the least amount of concerns with Tonal Impact, so he's the win candidate. Number 2 is Chargeit. On talent alone, you have to put him in the top 2. He's an obvious win candidate, but boy, he's hard to trust. And he's got a lot of mental issues, and you just don't know whether he's going to just flatten out or forget how to run at the top of the stretch like he often does. The smaller field, I think, is a big help to him. But in 3 to 5, you just have to bet against him at that price, given the way he's been running this year. Number 3, we're going to go with Unbridled Bomber. I think they're going to send this one to the lead, and if he's got enough juice to hang in there, and Tonal Impact is impeded by the added distance, this one could very well steal it. It's not out of the question whatsoever. Number 4 would be Red Run. Given his one-paced running style, I think he's more a candidate for under, and I think others will probably have a little more zip in the stretch. Same can be said for Clapton. He gets number 5 mainly because I think the class is a little bit of a concern, and more than anything else, the way he's going to have to run in this race, being up closer to the lead, I think will be an impediment to his ability to win this race. So I think you got to try to beat Chargeit. I just do. I mean, 3 to 5, he's just a really hard horse to trust the way he's been running lately. So I'm going with the horse in the best form, Tonal Impact. And I think he's just in really good form, and he's really hard to knock right now. And I think he can handle this field. Chargeit is certainly good enough to win this race, but at 3 to 5, I just can't back him with his enigmatic ways. Unbridled Bomber, I would not be surprised if that horse wires this field. I could see it happening. It's a long shot, and you probably won't get the price you deserve, but it might be worth taking a shot. I certainly, at the very least, I hope our analysis helps you in making your own decisions, and of course, I'll wish you the best of luck this weekend. We have our website going up next week, rightatthewire.com, and I'm pretty excited about it. It's going to have a lot of really good opportunities. We're going to be focusing primarily on Saratoga, and there'll be a lot of really good information for you to take in, and I love the spa. It's my favorite meet of the year. I really enjoy it, and I hope you're looking forward to it as well. So be on the lookout for that. I'll have some content later on to explain about it a little bit. I do want to note, though, for those of you who have been subscribers up till now, and anybody who subscribes to the prior to the beginning of the Saratoga meet, that would be July 12th, I've built in some special treats for you guys as a reward for your loyalty, and I'll have more about that later. But I think you'll enjoy that, and I just want to give you a little token of appreciation for being part of this community, because we really do appreciate it, and not easy always to put out these videos. So those of you in particular who've always dropped a line of encouragement or support, I really appreciate it, and it really keeps me going. So want to do a little something nice for you, and more about that later. If you do like what you see here, of course, now you have a little more motivation than usual to like and subscribe. And we do thank you for coming by, and keep those comments coming. Always love to hear from you guys. I'll be talking to you in the very near future, and until then, be well.